Hello, cyclocross friends, and welcome to episode 138 of Cyclocross Radio. On today's show, I'm talking with my buddy Zach Schuster from Cyclocross Magazine. We are in the car driving back from Bogense, the site of the 2019 Cyclocross World Championships, to Odense, where we're staying for the week in Denmark. And it was really a fun debriefing while it was still fresh in our minds, just hours after Matthew van der Poel had crossed the line to finish up the World Championships. We had a little road trip and really debriefed on the event. And it's always great to talk to Zach. Check out all of his work over at CXMagazine.com. All the race reviews, a lot of the photography in there is Zach's work. And just a great job as always on the race coverage over at Cyclocross Magazine. You can check out everything that I did from the World Championships over at CXHairs.com. Got galleries from every day, a couple videos up there, and more to come from that week in Denmark. I'd also love for you all to go and look at wideanglepodium.com. That is the home of all of the podcasts that we produce and put out to the world for you all. We'd love you to become a part of our Wide Angle Podium family, and you can do that there by joining up and donating either $5 a month, $10 a month on up, one-time donation. You know, you get some bonus content, you get some swag, and you just get to be a part of cycling content and a cycling family. So we want you in there. We want you part of the Wide Angle Podium. We want you to go check out the Grimper Brothers link as well. Get yourself some Hello Cyclocross friends and Full Schleck coffee. Please support all of them. And that's about it. We're going to get right into this episode. Follow me at CXHairs on Instagram and on Twitter. If you got anything to say, if I screw anything up, please send me an email at feedback@cxhairs.com. All right, let's do it. Here we go. Episode 138 from inside of the Volkswagen Polo on the roads of Denmark. It's Zach and Bill's Excellent Adventure CX Worlds Edition. All right, Zach.
Hi, Bill.
Where are we?
We are in Bogense.
And
we're actually in your car. You know, I was thinking the first time we talked, we were in the empty Jingle Cross press room. I was wondering if we were going to stick around in the press room, which was kind of big and cavernous, but they were definitely giving us
They were ready for us to go.
Yeah, so now we're in your car.
Yeah, and I'm going to drive the manual transmission car with one hand, not hit that light post, do a three-point turn, remember how to go into reverse. There we go.
Well, I think anyone that's followed your coverage not only this season, but even this weekend has seen that you're a man of many talents, and that includes podcasting while driving a stick shift.
So here we are. Yeah. Where is it again? Where are we?
Bogense. You gotta, we were chided for being a little too harsh as Americans in saying Odense, which is a city near here, where we are. Many of us are staying.
Give us the exact quote that the gentleman said to us about how we were pronouncing it.
I think it was like, you Americans are always so angry.
It's like, it's a calm word.
Yes, that's what he said.
So yeah. So we're at the Cyclocross World Championships for 2019. They just finished up where it is, it's 1943, and we are leaving the venue. It's dark out, and it's good that you're here, Zach, because you can now tell me what happened this weekend.
That's right, because you were doing photography, right?
Yeah.
So you missed a good part of the race because you were up on the side of that hill, right? I'm sure for everyone watching at home saw that there weren't fans up there. So that was for you guys, right?
Yeah, it was really cool that they actually, it was not a fan zone. All the fans were down below, and then as photographers, we got full reign of the top of the hill, the superior position, and that was good. It was and it made it possible to get around, because one of the things that we were talking about, just chatting about in the press room, is just the size of the crowd mixed with the size of the venue. So possibly not the biggest crowd ever at a world championship, but it looked great since it was such a compact area that all of the fans had to be in.
Yeah, so I know last year with the World Cup, there were some criticisms of the venue. It's when you look at it, it is kind of tucked in there. There's the seawall along one side and then the sea on the other side, and it's kind of tucked and crammed in there. And I know there were some critiques in terms of getting around and mobility with large crowds, but I thought it was okay. I thought generally speaking, it seemed like there was good mobility. There was a really awesome spot to watch. Like, it was kind of like in a stadium. They put the TV screen up at the top, and so you could see all of the off cambers and sections along that embankment. I thought it worked really well. What did you think?
Yeah, I agree that, one of the concerns was the raging sea that happened in the 2017 World Cup against the seawall. That looked amazing. I mean, it was something that I was really looking forward to, but was a concern of the riders. So they actually moved the course inland just about a meter or two. I mean, not really that much, but then it didn't matter because there were no waves, and we were actually, it seemed like that we were perpetually at low tide. And the other big change I think they made, there was one run up at the end of the course that they put that ramp in there, so it was like a half ramp and then a little run up at the end, which I think the riders were very happy about. And then there were some sketchy tarmac areas that they either fixed or took out, that I know that there were like some drainage grates or something in the course in 2017 that didn't seem to be a concern. And in fact, I didn't hear any complaints from riders. I heard that maybe it didn't necessarily meet their skill set. Most of the complaints I heard about the track were from the internet, saying that it just looked boring.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you talked about missing this race. Somehow I will end up watching most races and doing most of our race reporting, but I had like the day off last year during that World Cup, and so I'm like kind of ignorant, which I guess I apologize for, but I have to admit, when it becomes a job and you get a chance to not watch a race, sometimes you take the day off and do something else.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's it was a very two parts. There was the flat part, and then there was the steep part. And I think today, Matthew Vanderpool was saying in his post-race interview that off camber, which I guess we'll get to, was incredibly decisive in the elite men's race. But he was saying that was the only thing that was remotely close to technically challenging, and I think he's right, because, it's everyone was spending time on some of those descents. They were eyeing them up, but no one crashed.
Right.
I think Lucinda Brand slipped at the bottom of one of them, but no one in pre-ride was crashing. It was just scary because it was so steep.
Yeah, and there was definitely the conditions changed on the one tricky part on that first off camber, that I think if you were able to ride smoothly like Vanderpool was, and that was a huge advantage. The track really reminded me of, for the people in the U.S., for our U.S. nationals at Hartford. One big off-camber hill, and then we just kept coming back to that, 2 or 3 times, and it really is the same sort of setup that they had here, just without the boats.
So basically we needed the epic snow conditions like we had in Hartford, and that would have changed it. Because, what happened is you saw that, especially as the weekend went on, from our course previews, when it was pretty dry, the ground was frozen. It was frozen solid, and so even when that top layer melted, it was so hard, and the racing was so fast because of it.
Well, that's it. Regardless of that, I still think that people aren't giving the track enough credit in that it really did change from race to race, and that was kind of a cool thing, that what riders had to bring to the race from Saturday in the morning to Sunday afternoon was completely different. And I think possibly the women's elite had the worst conditions out of anybody.
Well, that is very true. I think everyone was talking about how they stepped outside and all of a sudden it was misting and all that. I was telling you, I ran into you, it reminded me of Jingle Cross, where we saw the same exact thing, where it started raining literally as the women were gridding
right
up, and it completely changed from the pre-ride they had done 8 minutes before.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think, what we were able to see in preparing for this course, where it was tricky really was, with those changing conditions and how you set up your bikes. And in pre-rides, seeing a lot of flat tires, and it really is because when you came down the first big descent, after you went the off camber and then you went on that, first descent to the ramp, up the ramp, then down that, I guess that second one, but really the biggest one that brought you into that, into the bottom of the swell of the crowd. That it was a really, really hard transition on Wednesday and Thursday, and causing people a lot of trouble, even Friday. And I think a combination of it getting a little softer and sort of mellowing out at the bottom, and then people just sort of learning that they couldn't just go in there, full on and really take something off of it. Those are the type of decisions that had to be made just to make sure that you kept airing your tires the whole lap.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I was standing there on pre-ride on Thursday and Friday, and the rattling, like that you heard in the squealing of disc brakes, it seemed like that lessened, and part of that is because the ground softened up. But yeah, talking to riders that were out there initially, we got the chance to talk to them. I got the chance to talk to them on Thursday. They were talking about running higher pressure than normal, which seems like that also might have paid off on a lot of those flats. Because, you can argue that especially the women's races turns into road races. And so it might have been a little bit helpful to have a little bit more tire pressure versus what we saw at Valkenburg last year, or, for our Nats riders, what they saw at Louisville, where he wanted to run as low as possible. And some of the numbers we were hearing were like super low, like 13 PSI.
Right.
You didn't see that this weekend.
Yeah, no, I heard a lot of riders in the 20s, like 21, 22, which is something that is really unheard of at this level. Usually you're in the teens for these races. So it definitely was a course that called for higher tire pressure. And, you mentioned it, that could have been a more ideal for some of those really fast road-like sections. But, I mean, what do you think, Zach? I mean, so people are like, oh, it's just boring. It kind of looks like a grass crit. But the thing that I think we like about cyclocross, or even love about cyclocross, is that every week it brings something different. It's not a velodrome. You really don't know what you're getting into, and it could change from day to day when you're out there. We say the same thing in the mountain biking world, and it gets equal amount of criticism that they want to. Some riders want every track to be the kind that suits them the best, but in the end, we had the people that we thought were going to win the races. So does it even make a difference?
That's a good question. I've maintained that what I like to see is that a course that allows the best to rise to the top. And I guess, usually they do, but sometimes there can be those courses that might be, to think of one off the top of my head, Reno Cross from this year, that's just so flat and is so much like a grass crit that maybe, I hate the word grass crit, but, the kind of race where you could get a fluky finish based on how it plays out. And so despite that, I think I was telling you, last year people looked at the Reno Nationals course with the hill, and they said, oh my gosh, there's going to be groups of 75 riders at the front of these races. And what had happened is there was that long drag to the stairs that Blevins was hopping that I think really helped separate fields a lot. And I was telling you, with the wind and those long straights, I think that might have played a role too, because we saw the races. The U23 women's race might have been a little bit of a wild card in terms of what happened, but I think we saw the races that we would have predicted on a preview show. Yeah,
and if you looked at the men's U23, for instance, when it was time to go, Pidcock went, and he did it exactly in that section. It was one of the long flat sections that he was able to get away. Same with Vanderpool in the men's elite race. When it was time to step on the gas, he was able to do that, and he had everybody else playing catch up. The one I think the not that we need to go race by race, but just I think that the person who kind of, for me, sort of solidified this rider as an all-time great, because this isn't possibly her forte on these fast courses, and she was up against a lot of road racers, is Sane Khan. She's like, oh, it needs to be muddy and it needs to be horrible conditions, but she was able to go out there, with Lucinda Brand, who obviously, had an issue that we can talk about, but with Mariana Voss, with Anne-Marie Verse, these riders who are really good on the road and really fast and just powerful, and she was able to play their game and beat them at it, for her third championship in a row, after a season where we're all like, ooh, maybe she's not where she's been in the past.
Well, I think you alluded to it when you said cyclocross is about racing something every week, and you may have said it, that to be a winner, you have to be able to win in all conditions. And I think I was thinking the same thing about Sana Khan. Like, what's awesome about her is she's won in BLs, which was, she got some help in that race by a mechanical, but that was like just a crazy race. Last year was a trudge slog fest. She showed she could win on that. Much to the, which she wanted to, because she was kind of getting written off before that race by the
Sure.
Belgian media, because she's not a quote-unquote mountain bikester. But yeah, she stared down Voss and Brand, who were like road stars, and beat them, held them off, and defeated them on a course that, some could argue was like very fast and very road race-like. So yeah, should we dive into the elite women's race?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a perfect segue.
Yeah, for sure. I think that even before, because I saw like a almost a gif of what happened to Bran. But what are your thoughts on it? And once you get to that part, do you think that really was a determining factor, or do you think that Kant is gonna take that win regardless?
Well, so my one thing that I guess for Lucinda Brand, I think what has impressed me the most this year is how much better of a bike handler she became. She really improved and combined her utter power with better bike handling. Albeit we saw it at Druivencross. She crashed, I think, 2 or 3 times and still won the race. But she rode pretty perfectly at Namur. She rode really well at Hoogerheide and won those races. But at the same time, in the past, she's had some issue with crashes and stuff like that. And in a way, I think it kind of caught up with her. She went down early in the race, and she had to recover from that. And then she had the clip, the pit issue that took her down. So I guess maybe it's one of those things that it caught up with her. But I mean, I saw the GIF. As far as I could tell, she didn't come unclipped, which happens, and it cost her, because that was another match that she had to burn to try to get back in the race, which she had already had to use up because of her early mistake when she crashed.
Yeah, and on top of that, I look at, for this race and just how it played out, and already talking about Kant, I have to think, and I doubted her. I thought Brand was my prediction was Brand was gonna win. So I mean, I've bet against Kant, I think, the last couple of years, and maybe I should just stop doing that. What I go back to for her this season is Diegem. And, this is when she wasn't winning everything, was having some good races, some not great races, and just complete patience on her part in that race. I mean, really showed the maturity that she now has as a bike racer, where she did not go to the front of that race until the exact last second, where you had to be in front, right over the planks, up to the stairs to make the turn and take the win. And she just sat there and she let everybody else attack and everybody else pull around the whole field. And then she's now, it's crazy, because we think of her like as this kid coming up. She's the elder statesman out there almost. She's been doing this forever. She's nearing 30, and just that patience and that maturity, I think, has made her really dangerous for a very similar race today or yesterday, where it really played out, where there was going to be a group, and she just had to pick when she was going to make her move, pick when she was going to be strategic, and I think she played it perfectly.
So that's a good point for discussion. You think that she planned to make her move a lap? Because that was a lap and a half out. She normally doesn't do that. I viewed it as more like she got a gap and decided to go with it. She kind of like improvised a little bit.
I think, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it was probably a little early. Again, I'm coming in here at a little disadvantage, because I couldn't really remember when she went out ahead. I thought it was in that last lap.
So it happened. There was I called it the down, up, down section. So right after the first climb, you went down, up, down. She cleared it, and she looked back, and she had maybe about 2 seconds worth of a gap. And so she decided to floor it. One of the first times I interviewed Katie Compton was after she won a race. She's like, when you got a gap, you got to attack. And I think that's what she went with. But it was a lap and a half out, because the tension in that race was it going to come down to a sprint? It was, can Sana Kant hold off Lucinda Brand with those long power straights going on? So I guess that's how I saw it. But at the same time, I know you were head down taking
yeah, but
pictures.
even so, it's kind of interesting because we talk about how the technical sections were really short, but I mean that just proves it, and we'll talk about it as well with Van der Poel. But even with them being that short, and even with them being quote insignificant as opposed to all the longer straights, they made a difference. They played a part in the race. So having those technical skills, being able to ride that smoothly, get a gap, gave her the opportunity to do it. And who knows, and maybe at that point, especially as you said, Brand had already, burned a couple matches to get back in that. It just worked out to be perfect. But I still think that even for that, there's just that feel to it that she's just this tactically better racer now. Sana, when she came in, she was always pretty brash, and she wasn't going to take anything from anybody. She didn't make a lot of friends in the women's field because she take corners tight. She get accused of chopping people in corners. You can have your view on that if that's just how cyclocross is, or is if you have to play a little nice to pick your best chances to win. I don't know. I figure you have an advantage, you take it. But she's a very aggressive racer. But I think that she's been able to reel that in where it's not as sketchy looking or just more just some precision moves. And yeah, I think you're right. I think it's that Compton advice for this, where she saw that she had the gap, and she's like, well, even if I had decided to wait a little longer, this is the time, and I'll take my chances.
I was talking to someone. I don't know if we were on or off the record, so we'll just leave it vague. Who knows of Sana Kant? And they were telling me that she is an incredible, they call it student of the game in football, basketball, other sports. But, I mean, she'll tell you when she's afraid of different riders in what laps. She'll tell you, where riders are strong and where they're weak. And so, I think in part she's able to do this because she is, a lot of respect to anyone that wants to be that good, that thinks about it that hard. And maybe now she doesn't necessarily have the overwhelming power. And so, I'm not going to say crafty veteran, but the best basketball players, the best football players are the ones who study the game, who learn their weaknesses, learn their strengths, and know how to beat their opponents. And so yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Hearing that about her, and then seeing how it plays out at races like Diegem, and when it happened here at Worlds, because I think on that long drag, right? Like Lucinda Brand was maybe 4 seconds behind on the last lap, and Kant just knew she had to get to that first climb first. She knew that if she got there first, she was probably going to win the race because, there was the technical stuff was her forte, and it was fun to watch. I mean, it was kind of nerve-wracking because you're like, what's going to happen here? But to me, when I was looking at that, it just seemed to be like she knew she was strongest technically. She had to take advantage of those sections, and she had to, hold Brand off, which she did. A lot to her credit.
Yeah. And Brand has been the superstar this year. She's when she's in a race and she's going strong, she's almost unbeatable. But so yeah, when it comes down to World Championships, I mean, the sort of not to quote Buddy Ryan, but all she does is win championships. I came away from she's a gamer. Sana Kant is a gamer, and I think as a fan of sports, you love to see that. Whether we always come back to basketball, but like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady. I guess the Super Bowl actually is about to start in a little bit here at 4 a.m. our time. But the athletes that when it's the biggest stage, they rise to the occasion, and Sana Kant does that, and it's fun to watch. You can't help but just respect it, stand back a second, maybe go rewatch this race and be like, wow, that was awesome. Yeah, let's talk, because we might get to the train station in your hostel before we get through all the races. So let's talk about the men's elite for a little bit. Last race of the championship coming in there. It's not really a two-man battle coming into it, but a three-man battle. You had Wout van Aert, who's won the last three, who, much like we were just talking about Sana Kant, all he does is win championships, so will look awful not awful. I mean, look, he almost won the World Cup overall this year, so how bad could his season really have been? But just from what we have seen from him in the past, maybe not as good a season as we would expect. So coming in a little bit as the underdog, especially to Van der Poel, who's just, really just a step above everyone. But then the other guy that's moved himself up there is Toon Aerts. So really three guys that we're looking at who
who could win this. My pick for this, again, and I've been burned by him in the past, but I just felt like Van der Poel was unstoppable, and this was the kind of track that he would just be able to rail. I mean, it played to all of his strengths. He's supple on the stuff up top, and then he's just a power horse on everything else.
Yeah, so you talked about Van Aert. I was thinking he's a gamer, and he's shown that the last 3 World Championships. And when that came into my head is when he closed that gap. So, right off the bat, Van der Poel wins the whole shot. They get to one of the first straights, and he attacks. And Wout's like, no. This is not happening. You are not, pulling a 2017 World Cup Waterloo. And so he jumped his wheel. They kind of swarmed him or whatever. But I thought he showed something, given the season he's had when the off-camber played a huge role. It was the thing in this race. But when Toon Aerts made that mistake and gave Van der Poel a gap, Wout was kind of sitting in, and then Toon slipped on a corner, and Wout's like, "Look, I'm closing this gap." And I thought, given everything he's been through, I was like, "Whoa, we might have a bike race here."
Yeah, it was exciting when it became those two. It was kind of nostalgic. It was like, all right, the two boys are back together. They're older. Yeah, what are they? 24 now. And,
I
know. and we're in for a battle. And that you talked about that. It was the first off camber, and there was this little, I don't know if you could really see it from the coverage, but it was a super steep hill that ended transitioning not straight on, transitioning at an angle onto a walking path. And the lip of that walking path had just deteriorated, so that transition was just really, really difficult. And it was you always look at the features where you see the mountain biking a lot, where everybody will session the same feature over and over and over again until they nail it, so race day comes, and you always see just teams there and coaches, and they're watching every rider as they come through to see how they rode it and if they're gonna what line they want to take. That was the feature for this course. Everybody just camped out there watching every rider, seeing how they were going to do it. There was no low line. The low line was just not even a non-starter. Those who went down there just got lost, and you never saw them again. They almost never came back up. And the high line, it was like there was just one. You had to nail it perfectly well, and then you may have to dab once, but you could ride it. Wout came through there. It was sort of funny, and I was with a couple other folks. He just sort of rolled by us at the bottom. He was like, "That's a really tricky one," on Friday. It was just so
That's
calm,
funny.
so Wout-esque. It was deadpan, and we're like, "Yep, yes it is."
Yeah, so I was kind of standing down in the bowl there or whatever. You probably, folks watching at home probably saw it on TV, and they're like, "Wow, he came flying in there and he nailed that." Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
You were probably closer. It was like, oh my gosh, Mathieu van der Poel murdered that feature. It was incredible.
No, to the point that you're setting up as when you're photographing, you sort of get the rhythm of how people are coming through there, and it's like you almost missed it because it was just like boom, 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 done. There was no hesitation when it came to that end spot where everybody else was hesitating. It's just beautiful to watch, and and that's later on, and he's starting to open up his gap. And the thing that I want to go back to what you were talking about, Van Aert being a gamer, and why I think he is going to have a successful road career is he is one of these guys that can just bury himself. And I don't know if you saw the close-ups on the broadcast, but he was frothing.
Are you afraid? I saw the drool. Yes,
Yeah.
you could see that on the LED screens.
Yeah, and just looked completely dehydrated, just spittle just hanging down, head on, basically on his stem, just absolutely destroying himself to make sure that he stayed up there. Right until spoiler alert, Van der Poel went away, and then Van Aert, who I think really burned all of his matches trying to stay with him, and then he had to regroup, and Toon caught him, and excuse me,
We're making a right turn.
And then it was, he had to sort of like take a second, gather himself, and then it's like, okay, next, that one's gone. Now I got to worry about this next battle. And then he had to fight Tone from behind.
To get all, I guess, since we don't know how long we have, one thing that was really interesting, you look at Vanderpool and you're like, that guy's really talented and he can ride away from anyone. But in his post-race interview, actually he said, in the post-race interview, he said in his pre-race interview, he looked at that feature as being the decisive feature on this course. So he did his homework. And I was telling you, I take little notes. One of my friends calls it my Blues Clues notebook that I take notes in so I know what happens in the race. But, Vanderpool was with Van Aert, and once Van Aert made the catch, Vanderpool was cool, just sitting in second wheel. He was letting Van Aert do the work. But as they neared that off camber, Vanderpool pulled to the front. So even as that happened, I made note of it because I'm like, there was a feeling that some lap in this race, this is going to become a decisive move, and I'm going to want to make sure that I remembered it. And then it happened that lap. He railed the section again, Wout dabbed, and put a foot down. It was like 4 or 5 second gap, and you can't give Vanderpool 2 4 or 5 second gaps in a bike race right now. No, you really can't. And in the end, he's able to pull it off, win his second world championship, and I think of a rightful winner. Yeah, I mean, the guy is just something I don't know if we've ever seen this. We look back a couple years and we look at Sven, or even and he always had Niels there, was battling, but he was going away, but he was not dominant like Mathieu van der Poel is. And I'm sure the internet's going to tell me, oh, you're forgetting about, whoever else from 30 years ago. Just in my memory, this is just, he's just a phenomenon. There's just nothing like it. So we know we're probably going to have at least one more year of cross from him because of 2020. If he had not won this race, and would that affect his legacy? He's won how many? 25 of 27 international races coming into this race, so he's won 26 of 28 now. But if it had been 25 of 28, something happens next year, only has one world's title, quits. Do you think that would affect his legacy? Do you think this is kind of like a legacy-affecting win for him?
I think he needed this one because this one, he has the Sven Nys cover.
Yes.
Sven won 2, he's won 2. So, you can't use that against him in a comparison. So I think this was an important one. Yeah, you're right. What you're talking about with 2020, that's Hoogerheider, right? Is that?
Well, I was thinking about the Olympics.
Oh, the Olympics.
He's signed to do mountain biking.
Sure.
So he's got one more year of cross at least.
Yeah, but cross is more of a road sport than a mountain bike. But yeah, no, he absolutely will. But I think that the one thing that'll keep him in it is it 2023. So he may either be around for a while. Oops, I was supposed to turn there. Or he's going to come back because he's not going to miss his father's world championship.
Okay. So, well, in that case, I mean, he has plenty of time to cement his legacy. But there was certainly, last year he won 32 of 37 races.
Yep.
One of those not being worlds, and it's just like, I know in other sports people love to talk about legacies. I don't know if they do that as much in cross.
I think so, and I think that the same debates are there, and that it's definitely something that has been used against him, and people say, oh, he doesn't have the head for it or whatever else, which is kind of funny when you're talking about, oh, this at that time, 21 and 22-year-old kid couldn't win multiple world championships is kind of when he's still eligible for U23, but I think this definitely puts him as one of the greats ever if he were to quit tomorrow.
Can I go like wild card, change things up here? Is that allowed?
That is absolutely allowed.
Okay. So one thing that we skipped, I think one rider that showed a lot this weekend was the little badger, Katie Keough.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's talk about it.
Katie, I talked to her after the race, and she said it's been a very difficult season for her. She even said at one point she considered quitting bike racing. And she's really come on strong in the last month. I think you see her race, and you're like, oh, that's the Katie Keough we know. She raced really strong. She had a great start. She was in that group. She was within a wheel of Brammeyer and Brand of being towed back up to the front or being able to, contribute to that to get back up to the front. She just missed it, but almost finished sixth, just finished seventh by the hair of Yolanda Neff getting her at the end of the race.
The hair of Yolanda Neff's hair.
Yes. But no, I was so impressed with the heart that she showed and that she has shown through getting through this season.
Yeah, I heard the same thing about her, really, just wondering if this was it for her and if it was even worth it to continue. And then it just sounds from talking with people around her that she was really stoked with her race in Hoogerheide, and just I think what she said, just offhandedly, was she felt like she belonged out there again. Like she felt strong. She felt like she could attack. She didn't feel like she was getting pushed out of places, and that's just great to hear, because she really, she won a World Cup this year, so it's great that she ends the season on another high. And that was definitely worth noting. How about U23? Let's talk U23 women a little bit.
Yeah, that was it was a good race today. I think what's interesting is people were just telling me that, I was like, I think it's looking like a good race. There's a lot of talent. We've seen it kind of spread out and pop up in different places, but a lot of people are like, Celine's going to win. Celine Del Carmen Alvarado. But, maybe in part because of the course that it was producing that group racing in a way that she wasn't able to get away. She was very aggressive early and then sat in, and she had time to move perfectly. She showed maturity. She was going to go in that, after the off-camber. But, yeah, Van der Heijden chased her down.
Van der Heijden really, we talked about it a little bit, if Alvarado sort of, I think she did show maturity, but at the same time, I think she felt like, I need to drop these people, and she was maybe going through that match book a little too quickly, to the point that you were saying also, with Sana Khan, where she was like, I need to get to this point first, and then I can win the race. Boy, that pass happened on that last huge flyover. At the end of the race, she gives up the lead and isn't able to catch back on. Super happy for her teammate. The Netherlands still comes away with the win, but man, that had to be disappointing.
Yeah, she seemed mature about it, though. In the post-race press conference, she was very, gave credit. She's like, it's all I had. But yeah, maybe it's been a situation where she's podiumed in elite C1s at the European level. Maybe she thought that, I can drop these people. And that might have played into, and rightfully so. She picked a spot, she made the move, she had a gap.
Yeah.
But wasn't able, Inge Van der Heijden just,
she's
impressive.
Alvarado's, she is a rider. Where are we going from here?
There's a straight into a nothing. This is kind of weird.
All right. We're going to go. Oops, I can't go that way. And my back's. Kirk, stop breathing. Our back was all fogged up, but I got this. Cyclocross friends. This looks good.
Oh, this is where we were. This is where, where you tried to pick me up and got detoured all over the place. I think we're almost good here, though.
Okay. So, just Alvarado. I think she's gonna have a great career, and I'm pretty stoked about what's to come for her. And U23 men, I think that in that was an interesting one. Two heavy hitters. You got Ellie Iserbeet and Tom Pidcock, and last year with Iserbeet coming back and taking it, and this year it really, you talk about the different skills riders have, where Pidcock is an amazing cyclocross racer. He's like hugely powerful, an amazing road racer, and he showed that, and really he just decided on one of those straights it was time to go, and he went, and really nobody was able to stay with him, and it was kind of a snoozer as races go.
That attack was something, though. He got on to Iserbeet's wheel, and wow, that attack was incredible. It was people like to talk about souls being crushed.
Yes.
I think that was actually a soul-crushing attack.
You could see Van der Haar's soul leaving his body. That was
that was a weird Freudian slip.
Oh,
Iserbeet.
Yeah.
I don't know what Bill was thinking, but that is, I guess that probably qualifies as some kind of Freudian slip, right?
Sorry.
It happens. Another shout out, I think, in the U23 race, I think that's worth noting is Spencer Petrov. Another dude who dealt with a lot of stuff. He had a concussion. He struggled to come back. He had a terrible start in the U23 race. He was in like 40th place, and he just buried himself, and he rode into the top 20. I think.
Yeah.
I was just really impressed by the fight that he showed this season, because it hasn't been an easy one for him.
Yeah, for sure. Gage had good performance in there, but I think a little disappointed. He did better last year in this race, and I think he was hoping for at least a top 10 and wasn't able to get in there. But strong race and did well, and I think he's gonna continue to improve. What else haven't we talked about? Junior men. I can't even remember that race.
Ben Tullett won.
That was like
that was the British.
Yeah.
They were owning the day. A lot of pressure was on Helen Wyman in the elite women's race. She was joking. Well, I am Nikki Brandmeier. After the two Brits won the first two races. But yeah, that was Tullett was another one. He came back. He was injured a little bit earlier this year. Mayusin and Courtyans were the ones cleaning up in the World Cups, which is one of the times that all those riders get together. But, it's not how you race during the regular season. It's how you race when the jersey's on the line. And do you know who I believe the only other person who's won the junior race twice?
Who's that?
Vanderpool. So
I'm going to park here just for a second so we can finish up and I don't crash.
It's probably a good idea. But that's good company to be in. So I think he's another one to keep your eye on.
Yeah. You made an interesting point. Once again, Sane Khan, with the Brits winning those first two, the Dutch basically owning women's U23 right now. Sane Khan was the Belgian savior.
She was. That was kind of a big deal because it was Biels. They cleaned up, and they've cleaned up the last couple years, actually. They won, I think, 3 last year.
Well, because they'd have Iserbeet, not Vanderhaar, Iserbeet. They had Wout, and they had Sane. Anybody else? No,
I think it was 3 last year. So one thing that's there's been the B word about Vanderpool. It's really interesting being in the crowd, and maybe because there are a lot of Belgian homers, but you can't tell this watching the live streams like we normally do. It was palpable when Wout made that bobble. Like, you could feel the crowd just being like, "Oh no!"
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know if that was. I'm assuming it's probably because there were a lot of Belgian homers. But
for sure.
And then the 2 laps later, Jens Voigt was doing the announcing at the venue. He was like, and Wout is down 14 seconds, and everyone was like, "Oh," and like the energy just went out of that place. Did you feel that? Did you notice that?
Yeah,
as well?
I did. Even in that U23 race, you saw this. If you saw like the faces when Pidcock would race by, the glares. The glares that the race leader was getting because it wasn't Iserbeet were just amazing. And yeah, it's either it's your guy or nobody. Except evidently for the U.S. riders, who the Belgians seem to love.
They do, yeah. We heard some USA chants for the riders, and also the Danish folks I stayed with. I walked in, and they're like, "Oh, super bummed about Katie. We love Katie Compton. She's the best. We've been fans of hers forever." And I was like, well, "That's cool." It was Worlds for Compton, and she would tell you that. But yeah, it was interesting that they did have favorite riders because I don't know. We've talked about it. We weren't the top priority, I would say, as the English-speaking U.S. media here this weekend.
No, definitely not. And Kirk in the backseat was somehow able to talk himself into a red bib. But I think you were the only North American to do that. Other than that, it went to all the guys who are showing up for all of the races every week, which is fine. But I feel like we need at least some representation in there. But overall, just final thoughts on heading overseas and going to Worlds.
I think it's pretty cool. This is my first time. I'm really happy, and many thanks to Joachim Parbo, who a lot of American fans might remember from about a decade racing over in the U.S., but he helped find me lodging and put me up and taught me how to say Aarhus and Odense and Bogense.
And cyclocross.
Oh, it's Cyclocross.
There you go.
Cyclocross. That one I'm still struggling with. It's not cyclocross as it looks as spelling. No, it's really cool. We ran into some Americans who came. Actually, a lot of Americans who came over, and
they did.
Like people really.
For sure.
It's a cool experience. yeah, it's like football, but for all the nations coming together.
Right. Yeah. No, it was good. I had a good time as well. It was fun to play photographer for the weekend. I couldn't shoot any video because it's just, the rights are hugely expensive and a lot of hoops to jump through. So that definitely wasn't something I was going to do. And it's just such amazing coverage anyway. Nobody needs to see my video highlights. So it was fun to be taking photos for different clients instead and doing that work. And, Zach and I were also commenting as we're sitting in there in the media room just working on our assignments and finishing everything up that it's a lot easier than nationals, where we basically work our butts off for. That was not a gunshot; it was a backfire. That we work our butts off all week and have like 175 different races to cover and interview all of those people. Where here was like 5 races, not too bad.
I mean, I don't want to say it felt like a vacation, but this felt like Club Med compared to how hard we work at nationals, both of us. But no, I think I know that we're Cyclocross Magazine and CX Hairs are death competitors or whatever. But I hope that we did a good job. I thought that between the two of us, we produced a pretty decent amount of coverage of this World Championships, and so hopefully people appreciated that. But I think it was, again, as always, Bill, it was super fun working alongside and in tandem with you this weekend. And I guess sharing tips, like you got the muscle catch, but we were kind of like every time we walked by each other, we'd share tips on what we were going to talk about on this podcast. And give each other food for thought. So I thought it was super fun.
Your levels just went all weird on me. So hopefully you're actually showing up in this podcast. If not,
that's gonna be really weird to hear.
It's just gonna be me talking to myself. But Zach, yeah, no, it was awesome. It was, I didn't even know you were coming to this, so it was great when to see you here, and always good to hang out. Please go to CXMagazine.com. Check out all of Zach's work. He's been posting tons of interviews and race recaps for CX Worlds, and I don't know, until next season, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
No, DK. We're
that's
DK's
right. Okay.
I'm getting on Bill. We're gonna do a Cyclocross Magazine CX Hairs joint Dirty Cons at 200 venture. So I'm planting the seed now. Hopefully we'll be able to make it happen. Bill and I are gonna drive around in a Jeep for 12 hours.
Awesome. We'll do it.
Thank you for having me on the pod. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always. We'll do it the next time. From the road, this is Bill Scheichen.
I'm Zach Schuster.
We need a name.
Oh,
I'm just doing like a sign-off.
Me! And I believe you get to do the Cyclocross friend. Is that your sign-off?
I don't know if I do. Goodbye, Cyclocross friends?
Goodbye, Cyclocross friends.
There we go. All right.